Thanks for joining me, Rachel, for this Q&A. Now, to kind of jump straight in, we've had customers asking about the changes to the age at which you can start to access pensions. Can you give a little bit more detail on the current position and what's due to change?
Yes, of course, Charlene. Right. So the minimum age you can take money out of a pension is age 55. But the state pension is going up from age 66 for everybody to age 67. That's happening between the years of 2026 and 2028. So it's just a gradual increase. Now, because the state pensions age is going up, the government has decided to also increase the minimum age you can get benefits out of a pension. So as I said before, it's 55 at the moment, but it's going to increase to age 57 from April 2028.
All right, thanks. And is that the same for everybody? So like the state pension age, it's just that one age for everybody that's going up?
Not quite. It's not quite that easy. Now, some people have a right to have their pension benefits and to take their benefits from age 55. So they've got protection. But whether you have this protection really depends upon the pension scheme that you're in. It may be that people who are in an occupational scheme are able to carry on taking their money from age 55 instead of age 57. But some people in personal pensions might be able to also take their money from age 55. The point is you just don't know until you ask your pension scheme. So you've just really got to get in touch with your pension scheme direct and say, can I take my money still from age 55? Do I have this sort of protection or not? And they can look at the pension scheme rules and they can let you know. But the only way to really know with any certainty is to get hold of the pension scheme.
Okay, so once I've got in touch with my scheme administrator, does that then stay the same if I transfer elsewhere, for instance?
It may do or it may not do. It just depends. This is really quite complicated, this one. So if you have an age 55 and you've got protection of age 55, if you transfer to another pension scheme, then you should be able to still get at least some of your benefits out at age 55. But it really depends upon the stance that's been taken by the pension scheme you're transferring to. It depends whether they want to put that extra flexibility in or not. They don't have to do that. So if you are thinking about transferring and you do have this protection, then you may want to get in touch with the pension scheme you're transferring to find out if they're willing to honour it and to pay out some of your pension benefits at age 55.
Right, so not quite as easy and quite a bit for customers to potentially sort out then.
Yes, it can be. I think this is really quite complicated and detailed, and it's not clear what the situation is for anyone. They've really just got to get in touch with the pension schemes, and that always makes it a little bit more difficult for them.
Right, thank you. So kind of moving on from the age at which people can start to access their pensions, how can they actually access their money? What kind of shape do these different types of what we might call benefits take?
Well, when you get to age 55 or age 57, whatever it happens to be, then you can take some or all of your pension pots. This is often given the word crystallizing, which makes it sound quite magical and sparkly and lovely. But all it means is a way of getting your pension benefits and your pension pot and getting some money out. When you access your pension, you can take up to a quarter of it tax-free, and this is usually called a pension commencement lump sum. You then got some choices about what you want to do with the rest of the money. You could buy an annuity. Now, this is where you give a large amount of money to an insurance company, and they guarantee to pay you an income every year. So you can set the terms for your annuity. So, for example, you could decide that you want it to increase each year, either in line with inflation or at a set percentage. Or you may decide that you want to pay out some money to loved ones when you die. And this could be a lump sum, or it could be a percentage of the money that you've been receiving in your lifetime. So say half the income that you've been getting. But there's quite a lot of options around how you want to take an annuity. And so you're worth exploring what sort of rates you can get. And those may depend upon your personal circumstances. So, for example, any health and lifestyle issues would also be taken into account there. The other alternative you can look at is to take drawdown. Now, drawdown is when you leave the money invested, and the flexibility and the advantages of that is that the money just can keep going up in line with investment growth. And again, you get quite a lot of flexibility about how you want to take your drawdown money. You could take it as a regular income, or you could take it as a one-off payment. You could increase it every year, you can reduce it, you can stop it some years. You have a lot of flexibility about how you want to take your money out and how you want to receive it.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say, isn't it? You don't necessarily have to take it all at once then.
No, you don't. You can have a lot of flexibility about how you want to take your money. So you don't have to take the full amount. You could take just a small amount and then get your tax-free cash and then put the rest into drawdown or buy an annuity. Or what you could do is to take an ad hoc lump sum. And if you take an ad hoc lump sum, you just take a small bit and 25% of that will be tax-free and 75% of that will be taxed as income. So a lot of flexibility about how you want to access your money.
Yeah, thank you. And just kind of touching on pension income. Now, I earlier in the webinar talked about tax-free cash and the allowances around those tax-free cash payments. But what about the bit that is actually taxable and taxed as income? Because are there examples of where people are taxed more than they expect or feel that they've been overtaxed, for example?
Yes, usually your money is taxed as income, but there are occasions where somebody could be hit with an unexpected tax bill. So this happens where a pension saver cannot provide a current year tax code. So if that's the case, then HMRC requires the pension provider to either use an emergency tax code on a month one basis, or if they have a current year P45, then they can that can be applied on the same basis. So what this means is that the revenue, emergency tax codes mean that the revenue only gives them 1/12 of the usual tax allowances which are available. So for example, you have a personal allowance which is set at 12,570. But instead of getting that, you only get 1/12 of that, which works out about £1,048. So much, much less. So because of that, people are going to end up being severely overtaxed. But it doesn't mean that's the end tax that they've got to pay. It means that they need to get a repayment back from the revenue, but they will end up overpaying their tax initially.
Yeah, so in terms of that overtaxation, to kind of give customers an idea of what that might look like, let's say I wanted to take a chunk of my pension pot out. I don't have that current year P45, if you like. So just like when we are earning in our lifetime, it's all governed by that same income tax system, isn't it? So say I want to take £50,000 from my pension pot, how would that work in terms of these tax codes and tax-free amounts potentially?
Well, on that amount of money, 50,000, you would end up paying emergency tax of 15,250.
Wow.
But when you work out the real tax that you should be taking and the real tax you should be paying, then that is only around 5,000. So that is a lot of overpayment, £10,000 more. It's a big chunk of money to give to the revenue, even if it's only temporarily.
It reminds me of when you first start working, you get your first pay slip and you think, brilliant, I earn, oh my gosh, what was it? About £4 an hour for me, I think, showing my age here. But, you know, and you think, oh yeah, I've worked really hard, I'm going to get that nice like chunk in my bank account. And then it comes and you get this mystical pay slip thing and there's a big chunk that's come off in tax and national insurance in that case. But yeah, it's kind of taken me back a little bit there.
I think it can work out as a really nasty shock if people aren't aware this is going to happen. Then you end up looking at the money and you know what you want to do with the money, don't you? You've got plans, you've accessed your pension because you've said, right, I'm going to get this amount of money back out again. And if that's the case, then I think it comes as a nasty shock and you just might not be able to make the payments you want to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, big plans for that money, especially if it's like a chunk you're taking out for maybe that big holiday or whatever your retirement looks like. So In that scenario, what could I do if I'm sort of faced with this unexpected tax bill and I might not be able to do what I want?
You should be able to get your money back really quite quickly. It should be within about 30 days. So what you've got to do is to fill in one of three different forms. It's a reclaim form. Now, which one you fill in depends upon the nature of the withdrawals made from the pension and your personal circumstances and whether you've exhausted the pension pot or not. Lots of other little bits and pieces. But the idea is you fill in one of these three forms, send it back to the revenue, and within 30 days, they say that they will refund it back to you, your overpaid tax. Another thing you could do is if you know you've got this big payment coming out and you, as you said, you know you've got plans for it and you know what you're going to spend it on, then what you could do is just to take a small amount out, just a small taxable amount out, and then that would set all your right tax codes and it would make it all correct for the bigger payment that you then ask for. So it should work on that basis. But either way, there's a little bit of administration hassle for pension savers to go through. So as I said at the beginning, it's just being aware of it and knowing what's coming up.
Yeah, and I know that's something you've written about quite widely, you know, our desire to kind of change it so that the administration doesn't fall on the customer or on the saver.
Yeah.
It feels like there's sort of more that could be done perhaps with HMRC on this one.
I think so, but there have been a couple of occasions in the past where this has been pointed out to the revenue to HMRC, and so far they haven't taken any action. But you know, we all live in hope, so it is a big issue. There is a lot of money overpaid and reclaimed every year. It's a little cottage industry for the revenue to do. So yeah, there's an easier, simpler way forward. So let's hope we get there.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've moved, what is it they say? There's two certain things in life, death and taxes. So we've done taxes. And now we're going to move to the cheery subject of death, but it's a really important one and something that comes up quite a lot. We see quite a lot of questions from customers, and I'm sure when you're out on the road talking to people, including advisors as well, it's a really a popular topic. And a big plus of pensions is the flexibility to maybe pass some of your pot on when you do pass on. So I talked a little bit about who can potentially benefit from a pension pot like a SIP. Can we talk a bit more about like how people can pass money on, and again, kind of why this is considered an attractive thing with pensions?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is that when money is left within a pension, then we all know that it builds up tax efficiently. It's free from income tax and it's capital gains tax. So it's in a really good place. But when you pass on pension money, there is an added bonus that it's usually sheltered from inheritance tax as well. So it doesn't fall into the estate when people are trying to work out how much inheritance tax is due or if any inheritance tax is due. So that's a really big point, a plus point for pensions. You can usually pass your money on to whoever you like. There's a lot of flexibility and freedom about how you pass your pension money on. The scheme administrator usually makes the final decision on to whom the money is passed on to. But in doing that, they need to understand your personal circumstances, and they have your interests at heart, and they also have your loved ones' best interests at heart. So if you want to, say, pass money on to somebody, then the best way to get there is to fill in a nomination form or an expression of wish form and to say who you would like the money passed on to. And then the scheme administrator, when they're looking at this and making this sort of decision, they will take your wishes into account.
Yeah, so it's probably important to point out that's a different form perhaps for each different pension that you might have. So you might have your SIP, hopefully with HA Bell, or you might also have a workplace pension scheme. So again, it's kind of making sure you've let each of those schemes know your wishes. Again, a little bit more admin. I feel like we're giving people work to do today, but it is really important, isn't it? And
Yes.
just to kind of confirm, does the scheme administrator follow this?
Well, they certainly take on board your views and what you want to happen. The scheme administrator's job is to make sure that everybody is okay. So what they're going to do is to figure out, first of all, who is financially dependent upon you. So say a husband or wife or partner or small children or whoever it happens to be. And they really want to make sure that that person is going to take care of. But you don't have to leave your money to that person. So say, for example, I've got a pension fund and I want to leave it to my children and I don't want to leave it to my husband. I want to miss him out of the equation. I could fill in a nomination form and then say, I would like my money to go to my children. The scheme administrator would then just make sure that my husband is okay financially, he's all right without my pension money and he doesn't need it to survive. He's got other money elsewhere. And if that's the case, and they're happy about that, then they will look at the nomination form and say, okay, right, we'll pass it on to the children instead.
Right, okay. So how could your children then take the money, and are they taxed on that?
Well, they can take it as a lump sum or they can take it as income. And how they're taxed depends upon the age at which you die. So if you die after the age of 75 or 75 or older than that, then it doesn't matter if you pay out the money as a lump sum or an income. What happens is that the money is always going to be taxed as income. But obviously that's a whole range of considerations there. If you're looking at quite a big pension fund, then you may not want to take it all out as a lump sum because that could be a really hefty tax bill. That's going to push you into higher tax brackets and it's just, you're not going to get as much money back. So being able to give people the choice of taking an income, say through drawdown, then that's really beneficial because it means that people can decide when and how to take their money and to just manage that really tax efficiently. If you are under the age of 75 when you die, then usually the money is tax-free. It gets a little bit more complicated than that, as you would probably expect. So if you're paying out a lump sum, you can pay out tax-free lump sums, but you've got a limit on that. And the limit on that is £1,073,100. But that also includes all the tax-free lump sums that you've received during your lifetime and a few other ones as well. So for example, any tax-free cash that you might have taken when you moved over into drawdown. But so you have that limit on tax-free lump sums. Anything over that amount would be then taxed as income. But for anybody who dies before the age of 75, and if their beneficiaries receive an income, for example, drawdown or an annuity or something like that, then it's always going to be tax-free in those circumstances. There are no limits to worry about, nothing like that to worry about. It's always going to be tax-free. And that payment from drawdown, it could be a regular payment. So it could be a small regular payment amount, or it could be some single payments, or it could be a really big payment. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be tax-free if you can pay it out from drawdown.
Okay, so that kind of drawdown pot option for the beneficiary on someone's death sounds like a really advantageous tax position, or the flexibility at least.
Yeah, it's really tax efficient if someone dies before the age of 75, because as I said, it's going to be tax free. But even if they die after the age of 75, then again, it gives their beneficiaries lots more options about how to manage taking out the money. But it's not all pension schemes offer drawdown. So if you are a member of a SIP, if you have a SIP pension, then usually getting drawdown's no problem. But some workplace pension schemes don't offer it. So maybe people need to think about the sort of pension schemes they are in to make sure that their beneficiaries have a full range of options. Also, you need to it really just depends upon the person you're passing the pension money on to. If they are one of these people who have been nominated, so they are a beneficiary and you've nominated them to take the money, then they can get the option of drawdown. So again, this comes back to doing that extra admin hassle we were talking about, completing a nomination or expression of wish form for every single pension scheme. It's really important because it means that your money can go to whoever you want it to go to, but it also means that they can have so many more options about how to take their pension money, and they could possibly avoid a really quite a nasty tax bill as well. So really important just to do that paperwork.
Thanks, Rachel. There's lots to think about there, I think, for customers, but really hoping that it's of some use. And all that remains is for me to say thanks for joining me, Rachel. It's been really, really great. And
thanks a lot for having me.